Welcome to the Scaling Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Harper, and on today's show, we have Adam Mendler. Adam Mendler is a keynote speaker. He's an entrepreneur. He is a professor at UCLA, and today we talk a lot about leadership, guiding principles on how to start a company, how to kind of think about being self-aware, and doing kind of what makes sense for you that's going to grow your business and grow your life the most.
My advice for entrepreneurs is don't become an entrepreneur unless you have an idea that you believe in so strongly and are so passionate about that you can't do anything else but spend your time on this idea.
He's interviewed thousands of the most successful leaders in North America, and today he shares a bunch of different things about how those leaders are all similar, what you can do to emulate those leaders, and I know you're going to get a lot out of this episode. Enjoy. Adam, welcome to the show, man.
Aaron, excited to be with you. Fired up.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this. Let's. So the audience doesn't know you. Let's let the audience get to know you. What are you doing now professionally? Walk me through. I know you've got a podcast as well. Walk me through your background just a little bit, and I might double click on some certain things.
Hey, Aaron, thanks again, man. Really appreciate it. So by way of background, I do a few different things. I do a lot of interview work. I've interviewed thousands of the most successful people in America, hundreds of Fortune 500 CEOs, founders of household name companies, Hall of Fame athletes, 4-star generals and admirals, Olympic gold medalists, major military leaders, political leaders. I have a podcast called 30-Minute Mentors, where every week I release a new episode with one of America's most successful leaders. And then I have other interview series that I do. I do a lot of blog interviews. Through all of my interview work, having interviewed so many of America's most successful leaders, I've created some very unique content around how the most successful people have been able to attain breakthrough success, how anyone can become more successful in leading their own lives. So what I do professionally beyond my podcast is I get hired by different organizations to do keynote speaking, to do workshops, to facilitate, to do leadership trainings, primarily keynotes. That's what I'm best known for, but do all these kinds of things. And that's number two. That's how I earn my living, so to speak.
That's
and
great.
then the last thing I do, which is a ton of fun, but it's a very small part of my, call it portfolio, is I do a little bit of teaching. So I teach usually around one class a year. It's a graduate level class on leadership at UCLA. And I love it. I absolutely love it. This year, it's class was a summer class. In the past, fall and spring. Here's one last thing. On the advisory board of some entrepreneurial companies, and in a previous life, I started and grew and ran different small businesses. I've worked for big companies. So yeah, man. But what I do now, a lot of different things, wear a lot of different hats, keeps me really busy, but I love all of it.
That's great.
Puts me in a
That's
position
really
where
cool.
every day I wake up fired up.
I went to a graduate level program at UCLA after graduating from UC Santa Barbara. You guys did this. I don't know if you still do it, but it was like specific to like entertainment industry, because I went and worked in film and television after college on the kind of business side. And this was like a small, really focused kind of master's certificate program that I did classes with other master's students, specifically on like entertainment and the business of entertainment. And I absolutely loved it.
That's cool. I don't know anyone who went to UC Santa Barbara, didn't have the best, I was going to say 4 years, but usually 5 years or 6 years of their lives. So,
Yeah, it was a blast, man. I lived right on the beach for like 4 of those years, some of the best years of my life. A lot of fun.
4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years.
I did. I believe it or not, I finished. Believe it or not, I finished in 4. But looking back, I'm like, man, I should have done 1 or 2 victory laps.
I hear you.
That would have been fun. Um, okay, so you've interviewed thousands of people, or over 1,000 people. What are some of the key things that you've seen, traits, habits, um, mental frameworks that of some of the most successful people that you've seen are? Like, what are some of those things?
Yeah, there's a lot we could dive into here. But for starters, it always starts with yourself. The most successful people are self aware, understand who they are, know thyself. I don't know if they talked about the maxims delta in Santa Barbara. I did my undergrad at USC. I didn't learn that either, but I learned about that from interviewing America's most successful leaders. Know thyself. Before you can effectively lead others, you need to be able to lead your own life. Before others are going to follow you, you need to become a person worth following. And Aaron, you lead a lot of people. You lead an organization where a lot of people directly and indirectly are responsible to you, and how you show up every day impacts the lives of so many people. And you can't fake it. You can't fake leadership. You can't fake who you are. Authenticity is a huge one. The most successful people aren't trying to be anyone else. You're not going to be successful trying to be the second best version of anyone else. It's ultimately about showing up every day as your authentic self. So you think about the best leaders who you've been around, you think about the worst leaders who you've been around. Pretty good chance the best leaders who you've been around were or are people who are confident, comfortable in their own skin, show up every day not trying to prove anything, show up every day with a sense of caring. Great leaders are great listeners. Great leaders don't walk into a room intent on speaking, don't walk into a room intent on having themselves heard. They walk into a room intent on learning. Most successful people, and this is something I've learned from doing my podcast, something that I've learned from spending thousands of hours with the most successful people, they're not thinking about how successful they are. They're not thinking about where they are today. They're thinking about the fact that in order for them to attain sustained success, they have to continue to get better. The most successful people are lifelong learners. They're on this journey of continual improvement. We can talk about this topic all day and all night, but those are a few nuggets.
Yeah, no, that's great. And then when you teach your class, how does your interviewing inform kind of the class on leadership? Or is the class on leadership specific to like a specific book that you'd like structured around? Or how do those things connect, if they do?
Aaron, I'm going to ask you a question. Take a little bit of a risk with this, but what was your favorite class in college?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's funny. The one I remember the most, and granted, I don't remember a lot of them, but I remember. So I was studying film and communication, and there was this class that everyone was like, "Oh, it's the hardest one in order to get your degree. It's going to be crazy, blah blah." And basically, every week of the class, you had to write a 10-page paper. So every 7 days, you had to write like a meaningful 10-page paper that was like an entire breakdown and thesis. It blended like philosophy with like film theory and kind of breaking down. And like, it's funny, like I don't remember another class other than that one. And then there was an experiment. I guess now that I'm saying it, there was an experimental film class that I remember taking that was like very out there and left field. And the teacher was well known as that, but those are the two. But the one that I specifically remember as being a challenge for me was the one where I'm like, I got to write, meaningful papers for every single week of this semester.
Interesting. Yeah. I wasn't expecting that. It's an interesting experience.
Yeah.
So I did my undergrad at USC. Then I got my MBA at UCLA. And
Yep.
it's a whole nother, don't even need to go there. But my favorite classes in college, my two favorite classes in college, were both classes taught by people who lived in the real world, were really successful business people who brought in their friends, their associates, people who they knew who had achieved great success in business and gave us as undergraduate students the opportunity to learn from them, hear their stories, ask them questions, to learn from a wide range of people who had my first class freshman year of college. I remember this first day of class. The guy who taught the class was a guy named Jim Ellis, who later became the dean of USC Business School. He told us, I have good news and bad news. Good news, this is the best class you're going to have. Bad news, this is going to be the best class you're going to have in college. So it's all downhill from here. He was kind of right, except that I had another class that was similar to that, taught by a good friend of his named Craig Jennings. And those were my favorite classes. Fast forward, I got my MBA at UCLA. And my favorite class at UCLA was a class taught by former mayor of Los Angeles, Richard Reardon, great man. And may he rest in peace. What Richard Reardon used to do, Mayor Reardon, he would obviously share his wisdom and his experiences and his knowledge. But every week he would bring in one of his friends who was an incredibly experienced, incredibly successful person. And we had the opportunity to learn from really the most successful people in LA. So when I had the opportunity to teach courses at UCLA, I said to myself, this is the way to do it. And that's how I teach. So I bring in people who I know, and I try to bring in a very diverse range of voices that are customized and tailored to every class that I teach. The first week of class, I ask my students, what do you want to learn? Why are you here? I start off with that, go around the room. Who are you? What's your background? Tell me something about you that I should know, that your classmates should know. And what do you hope to get out of this class? It's very hard to become successful if you don't have a definition for success. That's the first step. What is your definition for success? So I want to get that from the students. What does success look like to you in this class? And once I have an understanding of that, what success looks like for each of my students, I can then design a class where I'm bringing in people from my network who are going to resonate with this mix of students. And that's how I design it. I have some people who I try to bring in every year because I know that students really like them. But a lot of the times I'm inviting people in real time because as students say, hey, I want to learn about this topic, or I want to learn about that topic. Not this past year, but the year before. When I asked that question, what do you guys want to learn? The overwhelming feedback that I got from my students, even though the class is on teamwork and leadership, the overwhelming feedback that I got from the students was that they wanted to learn how to become better communicators. They told me that in a lot of different ways, 12 different ways, but it all came down to we want to learn how to communicate better. And one of my students actually said, it would be great if you could bring in a stand-up comedian because it would be very interesting to learn about how a stand-up comedian prepares for getting on stage and their thought process and how they communicate and how they approach it. I did. So it was the first time I'd done that. I don't know if I'll do it again. Guy was great, but it was just tailored to that specific group. So
That's cool.
yeah.
That's awesome. How did you how did you get into interviewing, and walk me through kind of how you've gotten all of these folks to want to talk to you?
Yeah. How I got into two different questions. How I got into interviewing.
Mm-hmm.
Very unconventional path. And I would imagine understanding that a lot of people who are listening to this conversation are either franchisees or franchisors or interested in franchisee or franchisor. There is no one way to get into anything.
Yeah.
And my career path is a textbook example of the fact that there really is no textbook. And I started off by following the textbook. First chapter of my career was everything they tell you to do. I did really, really well in college. Phi Beta Kappa won all the honors and awards you can win. And when that happens, it sets you up on a certain career trajectory. So for me, that meant going and working on Wall Street. I worked for what was then the largest hedge fund in the world. Really prestigious job, the most prestigious job that I could find. And from there, got my MBA, top 10 business school, at the time at least. And after graduating, I went and worked for another big, prestigious financial institution, Fortune Global 150 bank. And I was 28. Back then, no one was really using the words quiet quitting or great resignation or anything like that. No one was really talking about the importance of being happy or fulfilled in the workplace. But I came to the realization that I was checking all these boxes. I was climbing this ladder, but to one end.
Yeah.
It wasn't bringing me any happiness. It wasn't bringing me any fulfillment. It wasn't bringing me any meaning. It wasn't bringing me any kind of purpose. And I wasn't really sure what next was, but I knew that what I was doing wasn't it. And after some soul searching, I got off the ladder and wound up starting a bunch of different businesses. Wound up working with my brother. And then for those of you out there who are entrepreneurs, you'll know this. Those of you out there who are not entrepreneurs yet, probably heard this. I'll say it to you from my seat at the table. Being an entrepreneur is really hard. Being an entrepreneur is crazy. Yep. Aaron, you agree?
Yeah, 100%. I tell people that all the time.
Being an entrepreneur is a crazy experience. I was a bootstrap entrepreneur. So you take the craziness of being an entrepreneur when you're a bootstrapped entrepreneur, then multiply that by 10.
Yeah.
I was working with my brother, so you then add another multiplier on top of that in terms of crazy. So,
and what was the business?
So we started a bunch of different businesses, actually.
Okay.
We started one business we started was an office furniture company. We started what was niche business, but it was a 7-figure revenue business, but again, niche.
Yeah, I like niche businesses.
We started a company called Beverly Hills Chairs, and it became the leading seller of refurbished Herman Miller Aeron chairs.
Okay, so, cool.
I'm actually sitting in a Herman Miller Mira chair, which is a great chair, but not in that business anymore. I'm not involved. I'm not trying to push any product on anybody here, but like that was a business we started. We bought these, used Herman Miller chairs. We would refurbish them. We would resell them. We had a couple of other businesses like that.
Cool.
And when you're a bootstrapped entrepreneur, man, like, become very creative. You have to be scrappy. And I played baseball. I was a second baseman by nature. I played third in high school. Like, I'm really a second baseman, and like, you're scrappy. As an entrepreneur, you got to be scrappy. And when you're a bootstrapped entrepreneur, one of the things that I was laser focused on was generating visibility. How do you get people to know that you exist in the marketplace? You need people to know who you are if you're going to sell any product. I tried all kinds of things. And one of the ideas I had was if I could do some writing and my writing could get seen, that would lead to visibility for my businesses. That would lead to more sales. So I started doing some writing. And this, by the way, actually was a terrible strategy. But I started doing some writing. My writing got picked up in different national media outlets, Forbes, Inc., Huffington Post, places like that. It didn't really help my businesses at all, but in the process, I discovered that I really enjoyed that. I was really good at it. I kept doing more and more of it. That is what ultimately led me to start interviewing really prominent and successful leaders. I started an interview series. Initially, they were written interviews, so like 1,000, 1,500 word blog style interviews. I still do them, and I still publish almost every day a new written interview on adammendler.com. But along
Cool.
the way, I came up with this idea, 30-minute mentors, 30-minute conversations with America's most successful leaders. And I launched it as a podcast a little bit over 5 years ago. This is what happened.
That's great. So people saw your stuff and then you'd reach out to them. Did you reach out directly and say, "Hey, want to interview you," kind of thing? Like, or did you have a team, or how'd you scale it?
Yeah. So when I first started, I had already had this written interview. So,
Right.
and I had already done writing for it that had been published in these different outlets. So I had already developed a brand.
Yep.
So, not to say that um, the I'd say it was the biggest brand by any means, but I developed enough of a brand where enough people out there knew me, trusted me, knew my work, knew what I was all about. So when I came up with the idea for 30-minute mentors, I remember this like it was yesterday, even though it was in 2019, summer of 2019. I sent out an email to a lot of people who I had worked with on the written interview series, and when I was writing these articles. I just put together this mass list and I sent out this email introducing the idea for 30-minute mentors, launching a podcast. This is what I'm doing. This is the format. Doing interviews with America's most successful people, founders and CEOs of household name companies, people who are household names themselves, U.S. senators, governors, and Hall of Fame athletes, celebrity. I kind of gave very specific categories. If you or anyone you work with is interested in participating, let me know. So I started off with that email, not to like my entire network, but to my sub network of people that I
Right.
collaborate with. And I came back with a ton of people who are interested in being on it. My first three guests were the founder of Kayak, the CEO of Deloitte Consulting, and Suzanne
Wow.
Sowers. May she rest in peace.
Wow.
And it was off to the races. And pretty early on, uh, most of my guests became inbound, where people would reach out to me. And again, it comes back to building your brand, but I built a
Right.
new sort of brand where people started reaching out to me early on, and the majority of my guests started becoming people that I would, yeah, that this person's a good fit. No, not really. But with all that said, even though today, like the vast majority of my guests, people who are inbound, I still reach out. I still
Yeah.
will reach out to people who I'm interested in having on. I think a really important lesson for anyone out there, whether you're or whether you're, uh, you know, an intern, whether you're a CEO, like it really doesn't matter where you are in your journey. Don't be afraid to reach out.
Yeah.
Do not be afraid to reach out. I say this all the time. If you reach out, there are three possible things that can happen. Number one, you don't hear back. Number two, you hear no. Number three, you hear yes.
Yeah. Those are the only things that could happen.
If you don't reach out, there's only one possible thing that can happen.
Yeah. That's awesome. So this podcast is about scaling your life and your business. What are some of the things that you like to do? Are you married, kids? What are the things you like to do to scale your life in addition to some of these really cool professional things you're doing?
So what's the opposite of being married? having kids. I
Uh,
watched a lot of Married with Children back in the day. Al Bundy was my hero. Maybe that's why I'm not married and don't have children. I was probably influenced by Al Bundy more
do
than
you surf? You're in California, right? Do you surf, mountain bike, hike, anything like that?
yeah. So on the family side, I'm single. I'm a bachelor. Not married, no kids, but I have five nieces and nephews. So
Nice.
I am very, very, very engaged. Well, and
That's great.
I
I
like
love
to think
that.
about it as not an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur. So in my personal life, I know what it takes to be an entrepreneur. So I can just imagine as a parent the commitment. But I'm a board member, which is a lot of fun. And I'm
Yep.
a board member to five kids who I view as children. I love them. I see them all the time. I mean, I love these kids like they're my own children. My mom was telling me the other day that so my mom has five grandchildren, and she was telling me that she has friends who have way more grandchildren. Her sister, I think, has like 15 grandchildren or something,
Wow.
and then she has friends who don't have any grandchildren. She was telling me, she's like, I feel bad for my friends who don't have any grandchildren because having five grandchildren, I know what they're missing. She said, I don't feel that way toward you because you're kind of like a grandparent. Like
Yeah.
these are like grandchildren.
You get the
So I
benefit.
feel
Yeah.
that. But beyond that, beyond the family side, I love baseball. I'm a huge baseball fan. I love sports in general. And I love watching games, going to games. Big Angels fan. So
Yeah.
during baseball season, watching a lot of Angels baseball.
I grew up going to
Stay,
Angel Stadium.
what's that?
I grew up going to Angel
Is
Stadium.
that? Are you from Orange County?
Yeah, I'm from Orange County.
Okay, where about?
Newport Beach.
Okay, great area, man.
Yeah.
Living
Yeah, I
life.
mean, we lived Coast Mesa, Newport Beach. They're all kind of like so like we lived in East Side Costa Mesa, but like across the street was Newport Beach. So I went to Newport Harbor High. If you're a baseball guy, my aunt is Dara Scully, which is
Sure.
Vin Scully's daughter-in-law for the Dodgers. So I grew up at Dodger Stadium, Angel Stadium. I loved it. It was awesome. It was a big part of my childhood.
Wow, that's really cool. Um, that is awesome. I mean, I live in LA. I live in Westwood, right by
Yep.
UCLA, and
Yep.
but I make the pilgrimage out to Anaheim during baseball season,
Totally.
especially on the weekends, or sometimes there's like an afternoon day game. Uh, get out there.
Yeah.
So huge baseball fan, and big sports fan in general. And, I like working out, like being active, but beyond that, I live a pretty low key lifestyle. I spend a lot of my time on my work, and um, if you're an entrepreneur, and not just you, Aaron, but like anyone listening who's an entrepreneur or interested in becoming an entrepreneur, the reality there isn't a work-life balance. Your
Yeah.
work is your life, so you have to
Hmm.
really enjoy it. For me, my work in a lot of ways, at least what I do now, really is a hobby for me, which is nice because I think to myself, if I wasn't doing this, like if I wasn't doing this professionally, what would I be doing in my free time? I don't know that I would be doing anything more fun than this.
Yeah.
What's more
Yeah.
fun
Totally.
than talking to the most interesting, accomplished people? What's more fun than going out and being able to motivate and inspire people to become better and more successful in their lives?
It's so
So
cool.
to build a career out of it is a blessing, and it's something that I work at really hard every day. But it there isn't a lot of separation, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
No, I think that's a good point. I mean, when I launched this company in 2023, we had my daughter, which is my second child, about 6 weeks before launching the company. and there was no work-life balance, and you're taking a company from 0 to 1, and it takes everything you've got. Now, fortunately, I've gotten into a position now where I have a professional CEO who's running my company, who manages a C-suite of executives, but not all businesses get to that point. Very few businesses get to the point actually where you can, afford that level of talent to then take the business to kind of the next level. But what I kind of realized is, like, I want to do the things that bring me the most amount of joy. Like sitting here talking to you brings me joy. Doing sales, marketing, content creation, traveling to different conferences, talking to people, like that brings me joy. The like day to day kind of like blocking and tackling and budgeting and this and that of like a business, like it just doesn't bring me as much joy. And so, having to kind of find a way to replace myself in that piece of the business, but still allow the business to grow, has been great. So I'm curious as to, when you speak at these different conferences, what kinds of places are you speaking at, and what are some of the things you like to talk about?
Yeah. And by the way, Aaron, before I answer your questions, spoken like a true entrepreneur, because that's what you have to do. Yeah, the two things that you shared that really stood out to me that I think are great lessons for anyone listening. Number one is, you want to spend as much time as possible working on your business and not in your business. And number two, if you're going to work in your business, which you have to, it's impossible to spend all your time working on your business and not in your business. But if you can spend your time working in your business, doing the things that you really enjoy doing, that's what it's all about. So if you
Right.
enjoy doing sales, if you enjoy doing marketing, like if you enjoy that stuff, great. In my case, I try to spend as much time as possible when I'm in my business, which is a lot. Fortunately, I don't have as much of a in your business versus on your business balance as I would like. It's something that I'm always thinking about and aspiring to spend more time on the business rather than in the business. But I am fortunately able to spend most of my time on the in the business stuff, doing things that I really enjoy doing. Things that might seem to other people as being menial are things that I really enjoy. It's just a matter of what we talked about right at the top of the conversation. Understanding yourself, know what brings you happiness, know what brings you fulfillment, know what you're good at. But there's alignment between one of the things I share in keynotes is, when you're trying to figure out what you want to do, you want to try to check three boxes. Number one, you want to do something that you love. Number two, you want to do something that you're great at. Number three, you want to do something that allows you to make a positive impact on the lives of others. When
Yeah.
you're checking all three of those boxes, when you go wake up first thing in the morning and you go to bed late at night, and throughout the day, man, you're fired up, you're excited, you're ready to get at it. Next morning, you wake up, you're excited, get back at it the next day. And compare that to being at a job where, I'm sure a lot of people listening to this can relate. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon and you're completely drained. Drained from doing what? And working too hard, or from not checking those three boxes. So
Yeah.
if you think about that framework, as an entrepreneur or as an employee, really just anything you do in life, so much of it is about finding that limit.
Yeah.
But going back to your question, what do I talk about? Where do I talk? So is that what you had asked me?
Yeah.
Sorry, I got off in a little bit of a tangent.
No. That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, no, I'm loving the conversation.
So you want to know where I speak and what I speak about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So where I speak to a very wide range of audiences. I segment my audience, types of audiences that I speak to, into three different groups. So firstly, I speak to a lot of companies. A lot of businesses will hire me. I speak to a lot of associations. I speak to a lot of universities, nonprofits. So I speak to a very diverse range of types of organizations. But do a lot of corporate stuff. It's probably, you know. With that said, I think of my audiences in three different buckets. One bucket is a group that I call emerging leaders. People who could be college students, could be 20s, could be in your 30s, could be in your 40s. The common thread is trying to take that next step, trying to become more successful in your career, in your business, trying to get to that next level. Second group I speak to is a group that isn't actually trying to do that at all. They don't care about that. Their minds, they've made it already. But they have a whole other set of problems. There are people like you, Aaron, who have built highly successful businesses or leading highly successful businesses. They're in the C-suite. They're great executives. What do they care about? Care about a lot of issues around people. How do I recruit, retain, and motivate talent? Employee engagement. How are the most successful leaders leading? What kind of learn? How do I lead in today's landscape? So the first group is more around how to unlock your leadership potential, how to become more successful. The second group is more around how to lead more effectively today. And then the third group that I speak to, which is the group I speak to most often, is a group that includes people from groups 1 and group 2. So you're at a company, you come in, get hired by a company, and at that company could be someone like you who's the founder of the company. It could be someone who's 21 and is in their first job. And what you're thinking about and what the 21-year-old is thinking about are two totally different things. You have totally different sets of concerns. And my job is to try to deliver content that reaches both of you. And I try to do that through my podcast, 30-Minute Mentors. That is my audience. My audience is groups 1 and groups 2. So with my keynotes, I'm able to do that. I'm able to thread that needle. And I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it answers it. It's perfect. So what is some of the advice that you would give to both of those buckets? So if someone's listening right now and they want to start a company or they want to figure out how to lead, what's the advice you'd give that person? And then what's the advice you'd give someone who's in more of my position or an executive that wants to scale, and so that we could leave the audience with some really powerful nuggets, because you've learned a ton about this stuff and talk about it all the time. So I'm curious.
Yeah. So for the first group who is trying to, and I'm actually going to segment that first group, because I think I heard you correctly. You mentioned people who are interested in starting companies, and then you mentioned people who are trying to become more successful. And those to me are like two totally different groups, because I have advice. I'll give you advice for entrepreneurs, then I'll give you advice for just emerging leaders.
Great.
My advice for entrepreneurs is don't become an entrepreneur unless you have an idea that you believe in so strongly and are so passionate about that you can't do anything else but spend your time on this idea. There are so many reasons why people become entrepreneurs. You heard my reason why, and my reason is bad reason. I don't recommend that to anyone. And in my interviews with the most successful entrepreneurs, when I've uncovered their stories to success, it really revolves around that. It's like, I've had this idea that I had to do. There was no choice but to do it. Second piece of advice, which I've heard from literally founder after founder after founder of the most successful businesses, like multi-billion dollar businesses, is it's not the idea, it's the execution. No matter how good your idea is, it's how you execute on it. And I did an interview with Mike Evans, who was the founder of Grubhub. And Mike told me, he's like, the idea wasn't even that great of an idea. The idea was around before we had it. It was actually around a long time before that. It was just that we executed on it. And heard variations of that from so many other founders of multi-billion dollar businesses. One founder told me, and hopefully this resonates, come up with the idea great, like you've come up with it, but now the work starts. So if you don't enjoy, if all you enjoy is coming up with the idea, don't become an entrepreneur. You
Yeah.
have to enjoy what happens after the idea is generated. That's my advice for anyone interested in starting a business. Is that good, or do you want to dive deeper?
That's great. No, that's
Yeah.
really helpful. Yeah, that's awesome. And then those who are in kind of a leadership position, that other bucket that you speak to, what's the advice for them
Yeah.
that want
So,
to lead better?
so I mean, we could spend all day and all night on
I love
this.
it. I think it's great.
We could spend all night on this topic, but I'll give one little piece of advice, which is something that I shared earlier, but I want to reiterate it, which is the very best leaders are the very best listeners. Do not walk into a room intent on speaking, walk into every room intent on listening. I've interviewed a lot of great leaders who told me the same thing in different words, which is the answer is in the room. You as a leader probably don't have the answer. If you think you have all the answers, you're the wrong leader. Something that I like to say, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're either in the wrong room or you're the wrong person.
Yeah.
So if you think that you have all the answers, there's something wrong with you. You're not going to be successful as a leader. I give in my keynotes, I share a list of the key characteristics of the most successful leaders that I've put together from my conversations with thousands of America's most successful leaders. And one of those characteristics is humility. Leaders need to have the humility, understand that they don't have all the answers. Another one of those characteristics on the list is curiosity. Most successful leaders constantly trying to learn, constantly trying to get better, constantly trying to uncover the answers. So going back to the point that I was making, if you walk into a room and as a leader, have the humility to recognize that I don't have all the answers, but there's a good chance that the answer is in the room. There's a good chance that someone here has the answer, and it's my job as a leader to surface the answer. You're going to be successful. The best leaders don't lead through fear and intimidation. Don't lead by yelling and screaming and saying, this is an order, this is a command. The best leaders lead by building trust, by leading through kindness, by creating an environment, culture where people want to show up, do show up as their very best selves. And that's what leadership is all.
That's great, Adam. This has been a really, really helpful conversation. I've gotten a lot out of it. I know that the listeners will get a lot out of it. If people want to follow you or they want to book you for keynote or anything where they can just learn more about some of the stuff you write, where's the best place for people to find you?
Aaron, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate this conversation. This has been a ton of fun for me. What a highlight, man. I try to make it really easy. It's just my name, Adam Mendler. So you can go to adammendler.com, and there's a lot of information about me, a lot of my content. You can find my podcast, 30-Minute Mentors, on every podcasting app, but you can also find it at adammentler.com. You can find a lot of other resources at adammentler.com. You can connect with me there. You can connect with me on social at Mendler. And another thing that we didn't talk a lot about, but something that I believe in very strongly, and this is a key trait among the most successful people, in fact, the most successful leaders, is accessibility. You got to show up. You got to show up fully present. And I really pride myself on accessibility. So I say that because please don't hesitate to reach out. I mean that sincerely.
That's great. Well, thanks, Adam, for coming on the Scaling Podcast. I'm really glad we got to get to know each other today, and I really appreciate you and everything you shared.
I knew you were an Angels fan, man, we would have spent the whole time talking about baseball, and it probably wouldn't have been a very happy conversation. Just from that
I
trip.
know. I know, unfortunately, yeah. Well, thanks for coming on the show, and we'll see you next time.
Looking forward.